It was all about what is additive construction? What is it as a technology? What are the different applications? And more importantly, what are the applications for Guam? Right. And so we spent the whole day talking about that. And in that room, Rob, like you can feel like it was the hope, the feeling of hope was palpable in that room, because I think people finally saw a technology that they saw the benefit, right? They're like, yes, this is possible for our island.
Half a day, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam Podcast, the podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. Our guest for today's episode is Ann Dela Cruz. Ann is someone who really represents the next generation of Guam leadership, a person who's not just talking about it, she's out there really doing things for the island. She is the daughter of Guam, a proud graduate of Academy of Our Lady of Guam, a U.S. Army Reserve officer, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and founder of the Asia Pacific Investor Network. She's also the CEO of Starsand Technologies, where she is helping lead efforts to explore 3D printed houses here on Guam, something that could fundamentally change how we think about affordability, construction, and resilience on the island. At the same time, she continues to serve in the national security space, supporting Joint Task Force Micronesia and working in roles like an emergency preparedness liaison officer. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Ann Dela Cruz. Ann, welcome to the Innovate Guam Podcast. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Rob. I appreciate being here.
So we have a tradition here on the Innovate Guam Podcast. We always start off with some icebreaker questions to kind of get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. And the first question I ask all of my guests, what is your definition of innovation and what does innovation mean to you?
Me, innovation is about continuous improvement and finding ways to continually overcoming. So any problems exist all times and all ways. So it's always just trying to find a way to either think differently or do something differently to be able to overcome. I think sometimes people think innovation can be really something radical, but in my experience, innovation is just consistent effort that compounds and accelerates over time. And so for me, innovation is just about doing something different to change the way you need to go about solving a problem.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So you seem to live naturally at the intersection between service, entrepreneurship, and relationship building. Which of these comes most naturally to you, and which ones really require a lot of work from you?
I think what does come naturally to me is relationship building. I found that in any circle I'm in, any community I'm in, any team, what draws me to people is people. I'm naturally curious, and so I always want to learn about people, not in terms of the capacity of meeting them, but who they are as a person. And I think because I've done that for so long, my skill sets have just kind of been refined. And so as I enter new spaces and meet new faces, it just compounds.
Yes. I really see you as a leader here on Guam, and you're trying to bring innovation to the space to make Guam better. As you look out 10 years in the future, what would you most be proud to say, I helped make that happen?
Yeah, I would love 10 years from now for Guam as an island and as a community and as a people to be in a place where they're so many possibilities that are available to them. I think, before, especially for me growing up here on this island, we used to think we're remote, we had limited resources, limited options, and I think we are very fortunate to be living in an age where technology is at a point where really there is so many possibilities, but I think people
Yes.
who live here just need to know that that is not only possible, but possible for them. So my hope is to be a change agent in that space and hopefully create ways for people to be introduced to the idea of all things possible, not only for them, but for their families.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. So let's start off big picture. Who is Ann Dela Cruz? So for those might be listening who don't know you, don't know your background, tell us your story.
Wow. How much time do we have, Rob? Just so I'm born and raised here on Guam. Grew up here, village of Manila. Went to high school here, Academy of Our Lady of Guam. And when I was 17, I knew I wanted to leave the island to go to college. I was fortunate enough with family who had the resources to support me to do that. Chose to go to San Francisco, University of San Francisco. And of course, I went from a small island to a city and realized,
Huh?
oh, how do I pay for college, right? And so I had to figure out how to do that. Fortunately for me, the Army had a ROTC program on campus. And so I
Yes.
looked into that, told me they were going to give me a 3-year scholarship and a guaranteed job after college. So I said, where do I sign? And then once I got my commission, entered into active duty. This was around 2002. So you can imagine that was the time of the war in Iraq and global war on terrorism. And so I
Yes.
started my career going to war. So that really created opportunities for me as a young adult to be doing things that most people don't even think about doing at all in their lifetime. So the experiences that I gained there were really life-changing, transformational for
Yes.
me. And then fast forward the last 25 years I've been away from home. I've moved 15 times in the last 20 some years. And yes, and so coming back home, I honestly didn't think I was going to come back home. I was definitely one of those people of, I'm going to get off the island, I'm going to be independent, I'm going to go do all these great and wonderful things. Guam will always be my island home, but I'm just going to visit. But of course, what always brings us back home is family, right? And so I moved back in 2023 to help my family and to create ways that my children, who are still young and in their formative years, to learn what it takes to live on an island, experiences that they normally wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah. So two-part question, right? So part one, how did your time growing up on Guam, how did that help shape you early on? And then part two, when you left Guam, the small island, and saw the bigger world, how did that shape you in terms of opportunities and the way that you think about things? So part one.
Yeah. So part one, I think family, like culture, I would say is a big thing. Our island culture, the Chamorro people, our customs, our way of doing things is very much embedded and ingrained in who I am. I think anytime when I left the island, I definitely brought that with me. And anytime I had a chance, I was sharing our food, right? Our ways of living, our stories of typhoon conditions, right? And the things we had to do to endure. I was definitely sharing those things. And that was very important to me, sharing my heritage. And then I think to your second question, having experienced more of the world, I saw all the possibilities, right? Like just because I've learned to do something this one way doesn't mean that's the only way. And because I
Mm-hmm.
lived in so many different places, and also thanks to my Army career, I've been in so many different teams and seen and experienced so many different types of leadership styles and ways of going about a problem set. And so I've been able to take that experience, that knowledge with me, bringing back home. And now I find myself in a really interesting position to be able to start doing things that I think are impactful for my island.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about your military experience and kind of the many hats you wear. You still are in national security and serving the country in that way. Kind of in two different hats you wear. One as a civilian contractor working at Joint Task Force Micronesia, and as an Army reservist working at Joint Task Force Micronesia. So let's start off there. What is Joint Task Force Micronesia, and why does it matter? And what should people of Guam know about JTF Micronesia?
Joint Task Force Micronesia is a two-star Navy command that recently stood up in June of 2024, I believe. I joined that team, I think around October timeframe, and have been with them since. In my experience so far, it is a joint command. So what that means is I, as Army, even though I'm a civilian contractor, I get to work in concert with Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. And so it's a really dynamic environment to be in, to understand, because even though I'm pretty proficient on all things Army, or most things Army, I should say, learning how the Navy does things, how the Marines, how we work together is an incredible environment to work in. When I think about why JTFM is important, I think it's because in my mind, and I'm definitely just speaking from Ann Dela Cruz's perspective here, is Indo-PACOM theater is so vast, and when you think about challenges and adversaries to keep maintain our national security, this theater is just there's just so many challenges, and of course, for
Yes.
someone like me who is a problem solver, I'm attracted to problem sets that are really big and complex, and so JTFM is, in my mind, the organization that has the most opportunity to address that for the Micronesia region. And so for me, I knew this was the place that I needed to be able to take my experience with the Army, my experience working in a joint environment, which I have done for the last 7 years, as well as my knowledge of my island home, to do it in such a way that can really bring value to the command. So that's why I'm there. And that's why I think it's incredibly important.
Can you tell us a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about the role JTF Micronesia plays in terms of logistics and emergency preparedness for the island as well as the outer Micronesian islands?
So I don't know how much of this, I'm going to pause here for a second because I don't know how much of this I can share in this platform. And I don't know if that will be, required to be reviewed by anyone before it actually gets released. So I'm just going to try and keep it very high level, as in, when it comes to, and to clarify, my role as a civilian contractor is with Joint Task Force Micronesia. My role in the Army is actually somewhat separate from the Emergency Preparedness Liaison Officer, which is my position and current role with the Army Reserves. And so when I'm in uniform, that is the role that I play. It's called EPLO. And so this is where I have the opportunity not only to operate in a joint environment, but also in a interagency capacity. So this is me working with FEMA, me working with other federal agencies. And so it's, you take a problem set, you throw it in the military terms, right? How we would do it in the Army is one way, how we would do it in joint environment is another way, and then how you do it in interagency, it's just a whole nother world. So I find myself growing, just incredible growth from just even the last few days with our current conditions with Typhoon Sinlaku.
Yes, the EPLO responsibilities are really timely now as we're going through recovery efforts from Sinlaku, the typhoon that just hit Guam and the Northern Marianas Islands. So, yeah, very timely kind of thing there. So, how has that military service shaped your approach to business and just leadership in general?
Yeah, well, it's honestly been transformational for me personally and professionally. When I think of a problem, I think not only big picture, right? When we talk vision and we talk strategy, I can think at that level. But because I'm a logistician, I've had a lot of practice on how do you take that big picture plan to a tactical level where it's more about execution, and I'm able to kind of transition it from strategy to execution in a seamless way. And I think has been a skill set that has served me very well, not only in my Army career, but any project I take on, Rob, I'm able to develop a plan, think through the system, integrate a system, and execute the processes in such a way that this is a problem, here's a solution, here's the result. And I'm able to be a part of that whole process because of all the opportunity the Army has given me to practice.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's transition from your military service. And again, thank you so much for your service in uniform and still now serving as a reservist and a contractor supporting JTF Micronesia. What you do every day is so, so important to our national security and our well-being. Let's transition now to kind of your business endeavors here. We want to start first in the real estate space. So, why did you start the Asia Pacific Investor Network, and what gap were you really trying to fill in starting that?
Yeah. So honestly, it was a personal problem. Essentially, I was doing real estate investing since I was 24, and I loved it, and I wanted to continue doing it. And I was actually at a great point where I was accelerating in that space. But then I got out of the Army on active duty only to marry back in. And of course, with that came the military lifestyle, which then forced us to move overseas to Korea. And so that, in addition to the fact that we started a family, it made me get to this point where I thought being overseas meant I was limited on options, right? I came to learn that it was a self-limiting belief, but at the time I didn't know that, right? At the time I was just experiencing the pain of being overseas, feeling
Yes.
like I couldn't do the things I did before, right? I was challenged with how to think differently, and it took a while to figure that out. But the good news is from that pain came meeting other people who also were experiencing the same thing. And so with that, we just end up bonding, right? And then we attracted other people who also were experiencing the same challenges. And through our relationship, and essentially became each other's sounding board, we ended up creating community. And through building community, we ended up realizing that, gosh, anything is possible, especially when you have support, right? And so as each of us were in our own journey of real estate investing and finding ways to overcome, we were able to be that support system to each other. And it just kind of evolved to the point that, yeah, so it did start off trying to build community, Rob, but that is essentially what ended up happening because what brought us together was one, that shared passion for real estate investing, and two, that pain point that was so deep in us and us just finding each other, right, to be able to overcome.
Yeah, how empowering is that? And it's a different way to think for those in the military as well as their family members, right? You start thinking you're limited or you're in a box, if you will, and you don't think about the great opportunities that you have from all of these different overseas assignments. You get assigned to Japan, Korea, Okinawa, Hawaii, Guam, etc. And it's not just you're in this box, you're trapped on base, you can only do these things. You got people thinking broader than that, that, oh, wow, you're in an overseas location. You could like tap into that real estate market and you could start investing in foreign markets and being a foreign investor. Wow. Most people wouldn't think of themselves as that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you totally nailed it. And I think what you're hearing me say is it really just comes down to mindset, right? The ability to recognize the situation you're in, and that at the end of the day, if you're willing to make a decision, that decision can, change your circumstance instantly, really. And I think being a part of this community is what has really like busted the doors and windows open on the fact that at the end of the day, if you're willing to adjust your mindset and make that choice for yourself, you could do anything.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about the Asia Pacific Investors Network meetups and master class collective, because you just finished having a master class collective here in Guam, and I won't be ashamed of plugging this. I was a participant. I sat in your day-long masterclass collective, and I thought it was quality education, quality speakers, and I really got a lot out of it. Really enjoyed sitting in that, and I thought it was very worthwhile. And I was like, man, more people need to know about this. That was kind of what I was thinking about the whole time I was sitting in the class. But can you tell us more about uh, what the APN does?
Yeah, no, thank you, Rob, and thank you for the kind words. It really does mean a lot for to hear you say that, because I know you've attended many of conferences, and so you can really kind of speak to the quality and the value of someone who's participating. And so, yeah, what we did so APIN, the Asia Pacific Investor Network, is essentially a community, right? And the way that it started was local in-person meetups. And I was actually living in Japan at the time, Yokota Air Base. And so when I was talking about me attracting or meeting other people who are rebonded over our pain of being overseas and trying to, feeling limited, that was local meetups. And so then we ended up that was in Japan, and then I actually ended up traveling to Guam and realized no one was representing on Guam, and so I was like, you know what, let me see if anyone here is experiencing the same thing, and sure enough, that was true, and so realizing that well, there's a community now, we have a chapter in Guam, if you will, and I have a chapter in Japan, but how do I maintain that, right? It's hard if I'm just doing it in person. So I ended up getting together with the few other community members in Japan, and we were like, you know what, why don't we do this virtually? And so I realized, so this was COVID, right? Because we were trying to figure out how do we stay connected when
Right.
we are restricted, right? And so the things that we would normally do with local meetups was fine, but how do you connect across the board? Because if it's just 3 people, that's great, but if we could increase that, wouldn't that be better? Where we can now leverage each other's resources, each other's networks, each other's brain power when it comes to figuring out different ways to solve problems, especially while living overseas. And so Zoom became our friend and our platform of choice when it came to now realizing that we could do a virtual series. And so we have about 12 members that we consider host coordinators and chapters throughout Japan, throughout Korea, Guam, and Hawaii. Those are the local meetups. And then every other month we meet virtually. And it's a how-to series because, for us, you can read a book, right? You could do all sorts of things. You could go to YouTube University. But the one thing you don't get is you don't get live engagement and the ability to ask like your burning questions, right? That are particular to you and your situation. And so creating a way for people to get access to speakers with experience and expertise and a willingness, right, to share ended up being the demand, right? And so we put that together. And then a lot of people showed up, and then we just kept on going. And so fast forward to what you experienced, the Masterclass Collective, and what will soon people could experience next year with the Asia Pacific Real Estate Investing Summit, is the fact that you have all these local meetups and chapters throughout the region, and then you have virtual, but how can we all get together, right? Because then that's kind of what drove that gathering, is because ultimately, because of COVID, I met all these people virtually, but a lot of them I haven't met in person. And so when I moved to Guam, I was like, I need to find a way to meet you, right? Because we've been doing all these
Yes.
incredible things together. And it'd be so awesome if I finally get to meet you in person. And so I thought, you know what? I'm here in Guam. Let's find a way to create an event to gather the community who have been, meeting each other virtually across the last couple of years, and let's host it on Guam. So we did that in 2024. It was wildly successful, as you can imagine, and then fast forward, we were going to do it again in 2026, but then the war in Iran kind of had some impacts on travel that we then realized we needed to pivot. And so instead of doing a full 2-day program, we decided to adjust to a 1-day program, which you now got a chance to experience, which we call the Masterclass Collective, because the core of what we're doing is really bringing in expert speakers who, again, are not only successful in their specific market, but also willing to share. And I think one of the things you shared is that the value of these speakers, what they brought to the table, to the room was just incredible. And as someone who organizes events like this, it was incredible to be a part of, right? And in this experience, I actually got to sit in the audience and actually hear a lot of the content, and then get to see and witness how other people were receiving this information. And so the response to the event was just amazing. As much work as it was putting it together, and definitely the stress of having to pivot. I think it was like less than 30 days that we had to make a decision and pivot from a 2-day program to a 1-day program. And but ultimately, the feedback from the people who participated, you shared yours. I'll tell you, there's been so many other very positive raving responses. And so in my mind, there's no doubt that we'll do this again. And so that's what people have to look forward to is the 2-day program that we'll have in place next year.
Yeah, and I would tell you what I was really, really excited about was the possibility for growth here. And I was glad to see that growth already happening, because you talk about mindset, right? This all started with a mindset change of military members and their family members, right? You now, because of your job, have access to foreign markets and the possibility to invest in foreign markets. Well, now growing beyond just military members, their families and veterans, the people in these different areas, Korea, Guam, Japan, Hawaii, etc., the local people are now getting involved and saying, oh, through this, I can now access foreign markets and become a foreign real estate investor. How powerful and how exciting is that? Seeing some of the local folks here from Guam sitting in that conference and starting to kind of change that mindset and trying to suck down as much information as possible so that we can create real foreign real estate investors based out of Guam here.
Yes. And again, as someone who's organizing and pulling this all together, it has been unbelievably fantastic to witness the journey, not only for myself, but just everyone who's involved in the team, and for participants such as yourself, seeing their minds blown and then seeing the possibilities. And I think you heard me say this in my opening comments, right? Is, if you want something, you have to see it to be it to do it to have it. And
Yes.
it's something my mentor shared with me, and I definitely find it to be true in pretty much every project I touch. And right there in that event, the Masterclass Collective, people saw what the possibility is, and in Inspiracy, in just that one day, they realized this is actually possible for me because I'm watching this person who is successful. And these are everyday people, right? These aren't like far-fetched, they're people with resources. These are everyday people who made a decision to change their financial status, and they figured it out by seeing other people, and they took action, right? And not a lot of them, it's not about taking big risks. It's about just taking action, and then surrounding yourself with people who do know what they're doing and are willing to share it with you, because in the game of real estate investing, it's a sport, right? It's a team sport, and you can't be the one person who knows all things. It's just not possible, right? And
Yes.
so even with AI tools, yes, incredible information accessible at your fingertips, but you still need a human, right? You still need a human
Yeah.
to do the execution. And I think that's what all of this is all about, is just surrounding yourself with people who are willing to be your support system. So as you decide what path you want to take within real estate investing, that's the community you have that will help you get through.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, my two favorite presentations from the Masterclass Collective. One, your expert who was talking about real estate opportunities in Japan, really highlighted all of the possibilities and how the difference between Japan's economy versus the United States economy right now creates a lot of opportunities and a lot of pathways to success operating in the Japan market, and seeing an actual viable way to kind of penetrate that market was very, very exciting. And then the second one wasn't even really real estate related. It was one person talking about how to use AI and how to automate your business, if you will, so that you're not spending so much time and effort into a lot of the mundane tasks, if you will, to free yourself up to be able to focus on those things that truly you as the business owner should be focusing on. So that was really, really exciting to see from a high level strategic aspect how you break that down, to go through, here are all of my tasks. What task do I have to do? What task can be outsourced? What task can be automated? And then walking through that process of divvying up your business that way so that you can get more time and be more effective. That was really good.
Yeah, thank you. And I totally echo your sentiments and all of that, because as someone, again, on the organizing side, I'm usually in the logistics, right? Like task and getting all that done. But being able to witness how it all came together and seeing how everyone received this information, it was just so wonderful to see that.
All right.
So thank you for sharing all that.
All right. So let's shift gears and turn our attention to 3D concrete printing and the efforts that you have going on under space. Is it what?
Starsand Technologies.
Yeah, Starsand Technology. I got a little like mental spasm right there. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that initiative? How did it come to be, and what you're really trying to do for Guam with launching an initiative to do 3D concrete printing?
Yeah. So when I knew that I was going to move back home, I started researching the market, right? And having done real estate investing for the
researching what?
Housing, my own personal housing.
Okay.
Needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a personal need, right? I needed housing when I relocate my family back home. And so I started researching that, and having bought properties across multiple states, different markets, to me, it was just a standard process. But having started doing my research, everyone was telling me that it's hard, and I didn't understand that. I was like, well, why is it so hard?
Right? Why is it so hard?
Yeah, why is it so hard? But sure enough, I came to realize that part of the hard was there's a supply issue. So just basic economy of there's not enough supply to meet the demand, and therefore, right, prices go. Also understanding that part of the supply problem is just the cost to develop real estate.
Yes.
And so when I happened to be in Japan, I met with somebody who we were just talking about real estate in Guam, and I was sharing with him the trends that I was seeing and some of the problems I was identifying. And he basically said to me, he's like, "Well, Ann, have you thought about 3D printing?" And I was like, well, no, because I don't know anything about it. And then he's like, yeah, no, like you can print houses with printers these days. And I said, gosh, well, that's great. But Guam's a little different. Guam, we require concrete because of all the typhoons and just that type of stuff. And so he said, oh yeah, no. You can actually print a house with concrete. And I was like, wait, what? Like that's different. Tell me more. And so of course he told me more. And I said, okay, now you need to come to Guam. And I need to show you my island, and I need you to assess and tell me if you think that technology is feasible here and suitable.
Yes.
So sure enough, we went through that, and I think it was like 3 days where we kind of just checked out the island and did all the things. And by the end of that, it was abundantly clear that yes, Guam needs this technology. And of course, for me, that wasn't really the question that I wanted to ask is, because you don't even need to do any research really. Like you could just like drive around the island and it's clear that, there needs to be some upgrades and whatnot. And so for me, the real question we needed to answer is, does Guam want this technology? Because
Very good question. Very good
yeah,
question. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can have, to me, technology is a tool, right? And so you can have this tool, but if you're not willing to want it, meaning if you're not willing to adopt the technology, then it's going to go nowhere, right?
Right.
And so, so that was the question that needed to be asked. And so, sure enough, we worked out an event where we co-hosted with the University of Guam, and I think we had like 100 people in the room. It was incredible, Rob. We had the engineers, we had developers, we had general contractors, we had insurance, finance, media, students, teachers, staff, and that whole event, it was a one-day event too, it was all about just introducing the technology. What is 3D concrete?
And this was co-sponsored by the Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Guam, right?
Actually, it was the Office of Sponsored Programs, and I'll have to get back to this. I can't believe I too just had a brain space here. Office
Just
of
like me.
yeah. So it's Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. That's what it is. And so
Okay.
we teamed up with them to host this event. It was hosted at the University of Guam in their School of Business space, and it was all about what is additive construction? What is it as a technology? What are the different applications? And more importantly, what are the applications for Guam? Right. And so we spent the whole day talking about that. And in that room, Rob, like you can feel like it was the hope, the feeling of hope was palpable in that room, because I think people finally saw a technology that they saw the benefit, right? They're like, yes, this is possible for our island. And so that then got us going, right? We were like, all right, we need to get started. So of course, as we got started, that's when all the obstacles started coming in. All right. And so this was, it's been, I think, a couple of years now since we've, started this initiative.
Yeah, what time frame was that when you all had that meeting at the University of Guam?
It was November of 2023.
Okay.
Was when we had that event. And I remember now because I moved back home in August of 2023, so just a couple months later. And so, yeah, that's when we had that event.
Yeah. So can you talk about some of those obstacles? Because I think that's going to lead us to like a bigger theme about ecosystem, that the technology is capable. The technology can do it, but the larger ecosystem that the technology operates in has to adjust, has to be improved in order for you to get the most out of technology. So can you talk to that?
Yeah, so where the challenge came in, well, I would say one of the first challenges was the question of an insurance. That was usually the first question people had is if even if you were able to print the house, is it insurable, right? And so the answer we came to is that yes, because ultimately uh, what it boiled down to is that there has to be a structural engineer because even though there's no building code, right? Like we would need a structural engineer to be able to do the work, the calculations to mitigate risk on whether or not the product would be structurally sound, right? And the engineer would then do their calculations. And then on the insurance side, they would also have their underwriters and their own structural engineer team that would be pouring through the reports to verify yes, this would be structural sound and a willingness to take the risk. So we were able to overcome that because we were able to identify, I think, 3 insurance agencies here on Guam who, assuming we met the criteria with the structural engineer and their underwriting requirements, that they would be willing to support us. So that was the first question. And the reason why the insurance matters, Rob, is because ultimately you have to get financing, right? Because even if we were able to print a house below the cost of market, and I think the number today is, I know it's over 400,000 is the median price point for a house. So even if the technology was able to print a house at half that cost, most people don't have $200,000 sitting in their pocket. They still need financing, right? And so in order to secure financing, it
has to be insurable. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So that was the first thing, and it took us some time to kind of work through those eaches to figure that out. Then the next step is building code, right? So because it's basically the permitting process, and so in order for us to even get there, well, first we did have to raise capital, and so to launch a company like this, it's definitely risky because it hasn't been done before, right? And if there's anything you've learned about me is that I'm okay with risk, right? Because I will do the research and I will do the things to surround myself with the people to help mitigate risk, right? So, but ultimately, it's a sizable capital that we would need to get started, not only in securing the printer for the manufacturer, but getting people trained and certified to use the equipment. So, but ultimately, even if I were to do all those things, Rob, I still need to get through the process of getting the project permitted. And that here on Guam, I think, takes an average of 18 months, 2 years, I've heard. And so that means myself as an entrepreneur, not only do I need to have the capital to do initial seed money to get the printer and the people, but then I have the holding cost to be able to weather the 2 years it would take just to get the permit approved, right? And then actually do construction. So those are all really incredibly hard things, and that is not something one individual could do. Not even something a single company could do. It has to be a whole of community effort, and we need partnerships across the board. And while a lot of people here on Island I found to be incredibly enthusiastic, as in they want to see this possible, they want to be a part of it, but it's hard to take the risk up front. And I think that's where a lot of people are, is they want me to take majority of the risk. And like I said, I'm willing to take some risk, but I can't do it alone, Rob. I need support from Guam agencies. I need support from community partners, and ultimately, that's to even get started in a meaningful way. That's where we need to be. And so I don't know if we're there yet, but I will tell you, for me personally, I haven't given up. I'm still doing a lot of things in the background. I'm not as vocal about it anymore because, quite frankly, I don't want to talk about it until I actually have something meaningful to share. So, but I do want to say that I'm still working it, and I'm just doing it in ways that are, again, just not as public. And so if there are people out there who want to be a part of this effort and they want to reach out to me, I definitely encourage that because yes,
and I think that's an important part of one of the reasons why I started this podcast, right, to find a coalition of the willing, if you will, because Guam can be that 21st century tech and innovation hub. We can diversify our economy and grow our economy, but it's going to require changes to our current ecosystem that affect not just initiatives like if you're going to 3D print buildings or housing on Guam to address the shortage of housing, but it affects many different things, bringing in prime contractors, other foreign investment, standing up sustainment capability here in Guam. All of those things require changes to the ecosystem, which is, permitting, friction in terms of financing and insurance and different government processes and regulations and zoning restrictions and all of that kind of stuff. Guam has to get serious about these things that are kind of broad and overarching in order for all of these different technology things that are ready to go right now, that are possible right now. But until you change the ecosystem that it operates in, that creates all of this friction, you can't be successful at these technology kind of things that are sitting on the shelf ready to execute today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the prototype that you were going to do? Because this kind of goes back to the whole service piece and being a veteran and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to go about a prototype to establish proof of concept?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. Yes, we do have a pilot program, and the pilot program is intended to showcase what the technology can do. So, of course, myself as a service member, my spouse is also retired Army after 22 years, and so, and you heard me just earlier talking about military real estate investors, and so being a service member is very near and dear to my heart. And so when I did move back to Guam, I already knew I wanted to integrate some way, somehow with the veteran community. And through that community, what I learned that they actually had a project to be able to build tiny homes for homeless veterans. And at the time, they were using traditional means, meaning just buying normal material that you would use and just using the labor, with veterans. And when I shared, or they learned that I was also working an initiative to introduce 3D concrete printing technology to Guam, it just became a natural partnership. And so we decided to team up. This is with a local veteran nonprofit called Got Your 671. And the goal was to do what we called Operations Patriot Place, where we would build a transit community. We talked about 8 to 10 tiny homes. These are for homeless veterans, where 2 of them would be for veteran families. And then that's what we're trying to do. So we actually already have designs, and we already kind of have a solid plan of what it would look like. But until we can get the printer here on ground and get through the permitting process, right now that's just where we're at. But that is the vision.
Yes. So again, the technology and the new capabilities and the new ideas are there. They're executable, but they need the ecosystem to be reformed in order to execute and take advantage of these great ideas and stuff, which is why people like you and others who are working on the outside to try to address some of these things, like the permitting process, some of the government bureaucracy and government regulations, so that we can have the opportunity to transform our island and our island economy. So very excited about that. So let's use that as the transition. What are you doing right now in terms of really trying to prepare for that future? I know all of the individual technology kind of things, but I also know that you're also trying to work on the ecosystem. Do you want to talk any about that?
Yeah, I can share a little bit because a lot of it is still very grassroots efforts. But in working specifically with the University of Guam, the School of Engineering, we worked out an arrangement where if we can, when we get to the printer here, they could be a part of the material market research. Because we could bring the printer here, but the printer isn't going to do anything if we don't have actual concrete, right? The actual cement to work with. And so part of our, you refer to as ecosystem, is developing the concrete material or the building material that is accessible here. Because if we go through traditional methods, right, we're importing all the supplies from all parts to be able to come here to Guam. And ultimately, if we really want to have meaningful impact on developing property or real estate and increasing supply at an accelerated pace, we have to be able to reduce our reliance on importing supplies. What do we have here that's readily accessible and available? And with the School of Engineering, we know that that's possible for us. And so they're willing to work with us in developing what that looks like for Guam, right? And actually not just for Guam, for
That's
the
exciting.
region. Yeah.
That's exciting. Because at first, when you started talking about that, I was like, well, the same material that they're using in Japan, we should be able to use here. What's the difficulty? I mean, they live in the ring of fire too. They have the same issues with earthquakes and severe weather and stuff like that. But the issue is to not have to rely on an outside location. What raw materials do we have here that we can turn into the acceptable building? So our building materials. So I really like that approach to make it organic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I mean, there are a lot of concrete already exists in this island. In fact, I think about at UOG when they were, demolishing some of the buildings. I mean, that debris ended up just in the landfill, right? So how can we take that material, which normally everyone would just throw away? How can we repurpose that in a way that recycle, upcycle, and place it back into our economy? Now, when we look at these typhoon conditions, now we are once again in a place where we have to rebuild, right? And we need to beautify our island. And why not take this concrete that normally would go in the landfill, repurpose that, and maybe now we're printing benches, printing fences, printing things that it doesn't require going through all the stringent building code requirements, right? But we can still use it because the printer is
erosion barriers, parks and recreation type stuff,
yes.
road barriers, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and you did not disappoint. This was a great conversation. Before we wrap up, I want to kind of pass the mic to you. We started off with you introducing who is Ann Dela Cruz. What do you want people to leave with most understanding about, all of these activities, all these different hats you wear, and what you're trying to do for Guam? What legacy are you really trying to leave, and what kind of impact are you really trying to have for Guam? Pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much. And that is a really big question, Rob. Thank you for asking it. For me, I think what matters most to me is that I'm creating community. I think when you look at all the different hats I wear and all the different functions, they may at the surface look very different and disparate, but there's a common thread, and that common thread isn't just me, right? It's the desire to build community, so I think in every project, every capacity, every role that I sit in, what I'm doing consistently amongst all of them is I'm building relationships and I'm connecting problems with solutions, people with resources. And I think as I continue my work, the projects just keep getting bigger and the problems just becoming more complex. But I am not doing anything differently. I'm just doing what I know I do really well. And so I think what I want people to know is that I am someone who is doing this not because I'm interested in money. I'm interested in impact. I'm at an age in life where I feel like I've been fortunate enough that I've had many opportunities early on, and I took risk and I took action. So I'm benefiting from that today. But now I'm at a stage where I want to take what I have and I want to invest it in future for our people, future for our culture, future for my family and your family. That's what matters most to me. And so I'm hoping that's what people will see in all the different things that I'm doing.
Yes, yes. So, Ann, if somebody wants to get into contact with you because they're interested in either the Asia Pacific Investors Network or more about 3D printing, um, concrete houses, or any of the other things that you're involved in, how best can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Because yes, I'm absolutely interested in connecting with people who would like to be a part of the team in whatever capacity they like to contribute. I would say if they wanted to get a hold of me directly, the best way is through LinkedIn. Just find me on there. I think I'm pretty easy to find, and then just send me a message. So that's one way. If you want to just be a part of the different projects and just kind of see what we have going on and what's going on. The Asia Pacific Investor Network has all the social media channels. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're also on LinkedIn. I would say we're probably most active on Facebook and Instagram. If people want to follow the Starsand Technologies, I think we've been a little not as active in that realm. So again, I think people who just want to reach out to me directly, I think LinkedIn is probably the best platform. And then I would love to meet them. Again, I'm always interested in building relationships and learning about the people and kind of what makes them tick and what matters to them. And I think one of my skill sets is being able to identify that, and depending on their goals and their objectives, we can figure out a good role to be a part of the team.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you again, Ann, for being a guest on the Innovate Guam podcast. To my audience, I hope you were inspired and learned something. I know I certainly did. Remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column the first and third Fridays of each month in the Pacific Daily News. See you next time. And remember, whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you so much.